play in women's sports. It's so. I've never had anybody ask me about the transgender is such a big deal, but nobody said, could you do us a favor? Could you let it be much easier for men to be able to transition into women? Nobody said that to me. Now, I'm sure there's somebody, but nobody has said it to me. And if really, does anybody here think that we should do that and make it real easy? And nobody said, sir, it's really, really important that we have open borders and we allow criminals from every country in the world to pour into our country. That we allow prisoners and drug dealers and terrorists and human traffickers to pour into our country, sir. This is very important to us. What the hell are these people doing? They're destroying our country. Nobody wants this. I think we're going to get a really big vote. I think we're going to get a lot of Democrats voting for us. You know, one thing, I'll say it to you because, you know, we're almost finished with this campaign. Can you believe it? We've been doing this together for 9 years, if you think about it, right? For 9 years. We've had the greatest, look, up in the little tiny corners of this big place. We've had the greatest rallies in the history of the world, not just this country. There's never been. I mean, we filled up Madison Square Garden last night. We could have filled it up 10 times. If you looked outside, you saw all the way back to the Hudson River. There's never been anything like it. I tell all my people that are working for me, maybe they'll come with us because they did a good job, but the ones that won't, they want to stay in the campaign business. I say it's going to be very tough. In 4 years from now, you'll have a candidate and you'll have an event and they'll draw 250 people. That's what normal would be. If the best, I don't want to use names, but the best politician came here and so-and-so is coming here, I'd love to use a name that everybody loves, like Ronald Reagan. We love Ronald Reagan. I'll use it anyway. Why not? You'd have 300 or 400 people going to a ballroom someplace, and it would be very acceptable. You're not going to have 15,000, 20,000 people. It doesn't happen. This is a unique situation. It's a unique point in time. It's Make America Great Again. It's the greatest political movement of all time. But we have a lot of such great people. We have such great people. Thank you. Look at this giant, look at the corners, people sitting in the corners. You always know if you're doing well when every little corner with those crummy seats up there, they're gone too. But every problem facing us can be solved. But now the fate of our nation is in your hands, and that's so true. What a rotten job. She's grossly incompetent. She's more incompetent than Biden, and I didn't think that was possible. Next Tuesday, you have to stand up and you have to tell Kamala Harris that you've had a terrible, terrible run, that you've hurt our country very badly. You've let murderers into our country and drug dealers. You've let human traffickers in. You've let terrorists into our country. You've accepted people from mental institutions and from jails. You've accepted some of the worst criminals in the world into our country. You're going to say, please say it, sir. I say, I will. Kamala, you're fired. Get out of here. Get out of here. Yeah. No. Be nice. Be nice. You know, they used to say that with Hitler, and I'd always go, relax, take it easy. We're going to win. We're going to win, Brandon. We're going to win. Just please relax. They would do it. Every time I'd mention her name, they'd scream, lock her up, lock her up. And then the fake news. That's a lot of fake news. Look at that. That's a lot. That's a lot, Bruce, isn't it, huh? It's a lot of fakers back there. But no, you know that's true. I'd say, easy, we're going to win, we're going to win. Then we won. And then they really win. What they said, lock her up, lock her up, lock her up. They screamed, I'd say, easy, easy, we won. We're going to have unity. I could have locked her up, but I didn't want to lock her up. She's the wife of the President of the United States previously, and she was Secretary of State. I said, that would be so terrible for our country. And then they try and do it to me. Isn't it terrible? Even in this area, you have Fani, F-A-N-I, Willis. I don't even know what it's all about. A lot of the people, they hurt a lot of people, good people. Fani and her boyfriend, whatever the hell his name is, Wade. He was an expert on this. Did you have any communication with the White House? No, I had none. Turned out he was there many days coordinating with justice. I call it coordinating with the Injustice Department. No, I thought it would have looked terrible to take Hillary Clinton. Could have locked her up. She did so many bad things, but wouldn't that be terrible? Then I come into office, and we did it all right too. We did it right. We didn't do anything wrong. They went after their political opponent. They went after their political opponent, and they made me more popular. Can you believe it? They made me more popular. I've been investigated more than the late, great Alphonse Capone. This was not a nice person. He would take that tough guy to dinner right there. He's a tough guy, I know him. He'd take him to dinner. If Alphonse didn't like him, he was gone. He'd be in the foundation of a building somewhere. They'd never find him. They'd never find him. And Al Capone wasn't investigated as much as me. How about my family? I have the greatest family, and they're constantly getting subpoenaed. Constantly. Eric Trump, he's the king. He's the king. He's a good kid. He's an innocent kid. He gets a subpoena every day. Nancy Pelosi, a total thief. Think of it. She has, I think it was Visa, wasn't it, Marjorie? Visa stock. She owns a lot of Visa stock. She started off with nothing. He had nothing, too. Now she's worth like $200 million or something. I'm always proud to say that I lost a hell of a lot of money doing this, but I'm proud to do it because I would not even think about it. This is the greatest thing. We're going to make the country great again. I got so many people. They're rich. Who the hell cares? I'm rich as hell. I don't give a damn. I lost billions. But think of this. Oh, the things I could have done. I could have made deals. I just don't want to do it. You know, it's such an honor to be president. I don't care if it costs you a couple of $1 billion, more than that. But think of this. She's got a big position in Visa. I don't know much about Visa, but she sold her position. That was okay, except the following day, they announced that Visa's going to be indicted or something bad's going to happen to them by the Department of Justice. Does anything happen? Nothing happens. They sold a day before the news came out, and she walked away, and then the stock, I assume, went down like a rock, right? What a disgraceful. And then she sits back, oh, we're going to do this or that. He's not a great American. Let me tell you, we are great Americans. The people in this room are great Americans. This man right here is a great American. We got a lot of great Americans in this room. Early voting is underway in Georgia until November 1st, and boy, do I hear we're doing good, but I can't look. I don't want to say it because I want you to keep going. We got to finish it off, you know? It's like I see these guys in a baseball game. They're going to win, and they get nice and complacent, and then they get their ass kicked in the last inning. I see the golfers walking down with a comfortable lead, and he said, oh, this is an easy game. This is so easy. And then he hits one out of bounds. He hits another one out of bounds. And he ends up losing a turn. We can't do that. We just got to focus Everybody get out. Could I take a free poll? You know, pollsters charge you a lot of money for this stuff, for nothing. I'm not even sure they actually go and interview anybody. I think they said, we interviewed 2,000 people. They probably didn't, but these are minor details. But I never complain when we're leading, and we're leading now in all the polls, so I can't complain. But let me do a free poll. Let me do a free poll, Bert. I want to do a free poll, Bert. So, who has voted already? Okay. Don't be embarrassed. Who has not voted yet but will? It's very interesting. So you have a lot of early voters, and we have a lot because we have a 50-50. So the rest of you have to get out and vote. We're leading by a lot, but get out and vote. We can't take any chances, right? Most important thing you can do, we're going to make our country great again. We're going to make America great again, but get out and vote. With your help, 8 days from now, we're going to defeat Kamala. You know, she's not...
Good evening, everyone. I'm Linsey Davis. Thanks so much for streaming with us. It is the final sprint in the race for the White House. You've been listening to former President Donald Trump on the trail in Georgia. And we are here in the state of Texas, where you know the saying, everything is bigger in Texas. Immigration, abortion, the battle for control of the U.S. Senate, all loom large in the Lone Star State with just 8 days until an election that many are calling the most consequential of our lifetime. The candidates are making their closing arguments. Former President Donald Trump with that massive rally at Madison Square Garden in New York. More than 24 speakers addressing the packed arena yesterday with a no-holds-barred, often profane endorsement of Trump and his campaign. 24 hours later, tonight, the Trump campaign is on the defense after a comedian at that MSG rally Sunday made sexist, racist, and crude remarks about Vice President Harris, Puerto Ricans, and black people. The campaign distancing itself from the comedian who described Puerto Rico as a floating island of garbage. Meantime, Vice President Harris's largest rally to date was Friday here in Texas with Beyonce. The Harris campaign chose the Lone Star State in part to highlight the impact of Texas's restrictive abortion laws. And Harris tomorrow night is set to deliver what her campaign is billing as the closing argument of her 3-month campaign at the Ellipse near the White House. With once again just 8 days to go, 45 million Americans have already cast their ballots. We're here in Texas to break it all down for you, from abortion to immigration to both candidates on the trail and battlegrounds today. And let's begin with our Maria Villarreal, who's with us here in Texas. And Maria, I know that you've been listening to some of what Trump had to say, not just today, in recent weeks as well, but today he was once again talking about how because we don't have secure borders, they're letting in criminals and drug dealers and people from mental hospitals, insane asylums. Your response to what you've been hearing, and as far as the actual facts about the number of immigrants, because we also know that they're declining, right, as well.
I think we have to focus really on the fact that this isn't new. We've been talking about this, you and I, for like the last 6 to 8 months, really. And it really centers around the idea that most Americans in our country don't really understand immigration because it's constantly evolving, right? The policies and how our politicians, how our leaders respond to it. When we hear things like, you know, migrants are coming over, they're pouring over, and they're coming from mental institutions, they are criminals, drug traffickers. I think that plays a lot on the fear in our country of the unknown. It is anti-immigrant rhetoric. It is very dangerous. I mean, we saw this play out in El Paso several years ago where, you know, the shooter in that particular case talked about an invasion in our country. We can see it at the rallies. It's very clear that this speaks to his base of voters, of people that support him. He feels very comfortable in this space. And on the flip side of it, what we haven't seen from the Harris campaign is a check, right? Is a fact check, is a policy check. When you're talking about things like, you know, migrants coming in that have criminal backgrounds, or they're being flooded into our airports or from mental institutions, you know, the other side of this should be able to say, like, okay, where is the information coming from on that? Explain to me how that's happening. And instead, we're here having this conversation. Same thing goes for when he talks about mass deportation as well.
And so let's kind of break down the facts, the numbers, the stats of it. Is crime up? Are the immigrants' numbers up? What kind of give our viewers a sense of the reality check?
You know, when we saw executive order being put in place by the Biden administration in June, we really did see very quickly a change in the number of encounter and apprehension numbers. I mean, these are the lowest that we have seen really since around 2020 during the COVID pandemic era. And a lot of that really does have to do with a lot of the policies that were put in place back in June. Obviously, a lot of critics will say, listen, why didn't you do that sooner? We obviously had a lot going on that was stressing the logistics at our border, but here we are. This is something, obviously, that will continue to evolve, and that Harris has said, listen, we're going to keep it this way. This is working for us, and we're going to add on to it moving forward. When we're also talking about, for example, non-citizen voting, we hear a lot of that at rallies like what we're seeing tonight. There's a discussion of, like, we're setting really a template for what could potentially happen if the election doesn't go in Trump's favor. They want to put that fear into people's minds.
But there's no proof.
There is
that's
no
happening.
Proof. No proof.
Just like there was no proof that immigrants were getting the hurricane relief money.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, that was something that was proven not just by the federal government, by FEMA saying, listen, we're on the ground. We have funds. Don't worry. But you also heard that from community leaders, saying, listen,
and the governor,
we've got you. Yes,
right.
and people that were affected saying, no, we see the funds at work. We know that people are coming out to help us. We trust in the system.
Maria Villarreal, great to be here on the ground with you in
and sorry about the wind, obviously, right?
I know, but
everything's bigger.
Cool.
Everything is bigger.
It's otherwise a very hot day, much warmer than in New York. But glad to be here with you, Maria. Thank you. And Rachel Scott is on the trail with former President Trump tonight at that rally in Georgia and files this report.
Tonight in Georgia, former President Donald Trump gushing about his massive weekend rally at New York's Madison Square Garden.
Last night we had a great rally at Madison Square Garden.
But that rally was marked by racism, sexism, and vitriol. Trump's campaign now on the defensive after speakers like this.
I don't know if you guys know this, but there's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. Yeah, I think it's called Puerto Rico.
A Trump campaign spokeswoman saying that joke doesn't reflect the views of President Trump or the campaign. But this speaker was invited by the Trump campaign, and there was more than just that. This is what he said about Latinos overall.
And these Latinos, they love making babies too, just know that. They do.
The rest of those words, too profane to play. He also made a crude joke about black people and watermelons. And he wasn't the only person on stage to use racist language. Tucker Carlson mocking Kamala Harris, the first black and South Asian vice president.
Oh, it's because she's just so impressive. As the first Samoan, Malaysian, low IQ, former California prosecutor ever to be elected president.
Today, Vice President Harris firing back, accusing Trump of fueling hate and division, saying Americans are exhausted.
What he did last night is not a discovery. It is just more of the same and maybe more vivid than usual. Donald Trump spends full time trying to have Americans point their finger at each other. Fans the fuel of hate and division. And that's why people are exhausted with him.
Those words about Puerto Rico sparking particular outrage. While the rally was going on, Harris happened to be greeting voters at a Puerto Rican restaurant in Philadelphia. Her campaign releasing this video.
Puerto Ricans deserve better.
Highly influential Puerto Rican superstar Bad Bunny then sharing it with his 46 million Instagram followers.
There is so much at stake in this election for Puerto Rican voters and for Puerto Rico.
He also shared this part of the video.
I will never forget what Donald Trump did and what he did not do when Puerto Rico needed a caring and a competent leader. He abandoned the island, tried to block aid after back-to-back devastating hurricanes, and offered nothing more than paper towels and insults.
In battleground Pennsylvania, Governor Josh Shapiro speaking directly to the state's 500,000 Puerto Rican residents.
If Donald Trump really wanted to disassociate himself with that, the first thing he would have said when he came onto the stage at Madison Square Garden was, hey, listen, I heard that person's attempted humor. It was not funny. I stand with the Puerto Rican community. He didn't do that.
Our thanks to Rachel Scott. And we are joined now by Luis Miranda, political strategist, community organizer, founding president of the Hispanic Federation and chairperson of the Latino Victory Fund, an organization dedicated to building political power in the Latino community. Luis, thank you so much for joining us. First, I just want to get your reaction from those comments about Puerto Rico from the comedian at last night's rally.
It's not the first time that Puerto Ricans are insulted by Trump or his people. We remember when Hurricane Maria hit Puerto Rico, how he withheld aid that Congress had appropriated to help Puerto Rico and used as an excuse that we were lazy and they wanted everything done for us. So I think we're going to mobilize some more, and we're going to go to those battleground states and make sure that we prove him wrong. We are not garbage, and we are not lazy, and we're all American citizens ready to vote in this election.
The Trump campaign says that the comedian's words do not reflect its views. Do you believe that this has no bearing on the former president's campaign platform?
Listen, I listened to 5 minutes while I was waiting for you of the rally that it's taking place in Georgia right now. And in those 5 minutes, he criticized Michelle Obama. I wondered if she is now included in the list of enemies that he is going to prosecute afterwards. He then talked about transgender and how that it's horrible. He talked about people coming from the border being criminals. He's talking about Latinos. He helped the crowd chant, "Lock her up." He criticized the fake news. This is in 5 minutes, which means that's what is coming out of his mouth. When you organized a rally, when you organized a political event, for yourself, for your party, every word that is said at that event represents who you are and the aspirations of your party and what you want to put in place if you were to be elected. This is exactly who Donald Trump is.
Do you think that this moment will galvanize Puerto Rican voters who were maybe going to sit this one out or change the mind of those who were planning on voting for Trump?
Listen, most people are going to vote for policies. We're no different, Latinos. But what Trump did in this rally, it's that the insult appealed to our heart, hurt our heart. And those insults then mobilize people who were probably supporting the Democrats and Vice President Harris now said to themselves, you know what? I was going to sit it out because I didn't think it was important, but I don't want this guy in the White House. I think the Vice President said it best. We are exhausted of this rhetoric, exhausted of this man constantly pitting one group against each other. And I think we are ready to move forward and close this page forever.
Mr. Luis Miranda, we thank you so much for your time and insight. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Vice President Kamala Harris with several stops in Michigan today, focusing on the economy. At a semiconductor manufacturing facility in Saginaw, Michigan, she promised to create high-skilled jobs for people who do not have a college degree. And what were Michigan's Governor Gretchen Whitmer and Kamala Harris doing at a bar? You'll see that in just a moment. ABC's Mary Bruce is in Michigan.
Tonight, Vice President Kamala Harris focusing on all-important Michigan, lasering in on the economy and boosting American manufacturing.
We're not going to have China beat us in the competition for the 21st century.
Harris visiting a semiconductor facility in Saginaw, promising as president to focus on creating highly skilled jobs for people without college degrees.
I believe that as we think of industries of the future and the future of America's workforce, we need to get in front of this idea that the only high-skilled jobs require a college degree. It's just not true.
As she travels through the key state, Harris saying she hears what voters are telling her about their kitchen table concerns.
They want to make sure that we're going to lower prices. They know that the price of groceries, for example, is too high. I know it too.
Over the weekend, Michelle Obama joining Harris on the trail for the first time. In searing remarks, the former First Lady said Harris is being held to a higher standard than Donald Trump.
So I hope you'll forgive me if I'm a little frustrated that some of us are choosing to ignore Donald Trump's gross incompetence while asking Kamala to dazzle us at every turn.
And in a campaign where abortion is a top issue, as Trump boasts about appointing 3 of the Supreme Court justices who overturned Roe versus Wade, Michelle Obama with an impassioned plea to men to take women's lives seriously.
Are you as men prepared to look into the eyes of the women and children you love and tell them that you supported this assault on our safety? And to the women listening, we have every right to demand that the men in our lives do better by us. We have to use our voices to make these choices clear to the men that we love. Our lives are worth more than their anger and disappointment. And we are more than just baby-making vessels.
Harris herself acknowledging she has to make up ground among men. Microphones picking up her conversation with Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer at a bar in Kalamazoo.
I've been bugging your whole team. I'm like, okay, you gotta do this, this, and this. But everyone's trying to sit Yeah.
Oh, we have microphones and I was listening to everything. I didn't realize that. Okay. So, well,
You'll
now
bleep
you tell
my
us.
F words.
We just told all the family secrets.
Her campaign keenly aware of that gender gap. Harris is leading among women, but Trump leads with men, and Harris is now trying to narrow that gap. Now, tomorrow, she'll be back in Washington outlining her closing argument in a major address at the exact same site where Donald Trump spoke to his supporters before they attacked the Capitol on January 6th. Harris hoping to hammer home what's at stake in this race. Lindsay?
Mary Bruce for us, thank you. Philadelphia's district attorney has sued Elon Musk over the $1 million giveaway Musk and his political group have been awarding registered voters in swing states. This comes after the DOJ warned Musk that the giveaway could violate federal law. The new lawsuit claims that Musk and his super PAC are, quote, running an illegal lottery and that it's a scheme to influence voters. The Philadelphia DA is seeking an emergency injunction. The FBI is joining the investigation after 3 ballot drop boxes were set on fire in the Pacific Northwest, destroying hundreds of ballots. You can see burning paper being pulled out of a drop box in Vancouver, Washington around 6 o'clock this morning, and about 10 miles away in Portland, Oregon, a similar scene there hours earlier. The 3 incidents are being investigated as arson. Here's our Chief Justice correspondent, Pierre Thomas.
Tonight, the FBI on the hunt for a suspected arsonist behind 3 fiery attacks on ballot drop boxes, destroying hundreds of ballots in the Pacific Northwest.
We do have smoke coming out of the ballot box.
Officials say the fires, only miles apart in Portland, Oregon and Vancouver, Washington, were sparked by incendiary devices attached to the outside of the drop boxes.
Any form of voter intimidation, disruption, blocking of access, or vandalism at these sites will not be tolerated.
Authorities concerned that someone could get hurt, releasing a photo of the suspect's Volvo. This box set ablaze just before dawn in Vancouver, Washington. Officers prying open the box, then pulling out ballots still burning. An hour earlier in Portland, a second fire.
It looks like there's some kind of device attached to the ballot box.
Luckily, only 3 ballots damaged because of fire suppressant inside the box. It comes as Homeland Security officials today issued a new bulletin warning that domestic violent extremists are posting online threats of violence toward election officials or infrastructure to prevent perceived fraud or to retaliate against it.
Our thanks to Pierre Thomas. Books have been banned in the U.S. since 1982, but the recent culture wars have driven book bans to a level that has not been seen in decades. In the past year alone, the number of books banned from public schools has tripled, according to PEN America, a nonprofit dedicated to protecting the right to free expression. And here in Texas, they have been leading that effort. At some point, see the most attempts to restrict or ban books of any state in the country. ABC's Mary Alice Parks take a look tonight at the culture wars impacting the presidential race following the Education Secretary on the ground as he tries to use old-fashioned retail politics to combat it.
We have technology set up in case.
The nation's top education official touring America's schools.
What's your name?
Visiting the most vulnerable students and choosing to fight back against threats to public education.
Let's just have a real conversation.
With days to go until the election, we got an exclusive look at Education Secretary Miguel Cardona in the crucial swing state of Pennsylvania. Serving students and uplifting teachers, Cardona taking steps to try to defend public schools. Clashes over the classroom now at a fever pitch.
Stop trying to indoctrinate our children. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, it sounds nice, but it's very scary. My 7-year-old does not need sex education.
The book that's in your library. I don't think that's appropriate. There's young people in the audience.
Of course it's appropriate.
It's a library book. It's not in the curriculum.
We believe schools should educate, not indoctrinate.
We need to make sure we have full transparency in the classroom.
With Democrats and Republicans sparring not only over the economy and reproductive rights, but over education on the campaign trail. Former President Donald Trump promising if elected, he will dismantle the Department of Education, using increasingly incendiary language about public schools and teachers.
We will get critical race theory and transgender insanity the hell out of our schools.
Harris calling Trump out and saying she wants to strengthen public education.
We are not going to let him eliminate the Department of Education that funds our public schools.
While education is largely a local issue, with cities and states providing the vast majority of funding and oversight for schools, the COVID pandemic ignited a firestorm.
Unmask our kids! Unmask our kids!
Parents disagreeing about school closures and protesting mask mandates. From there, Republican politicians and conservative advocacy groups calling for, in their words, more, quote, parental rights in schools.
So you have to give the rights back to the parents.
Moms for Liberty was founded during the pandemic and amassed hundreds of chapters nationwide, recognizing frustration many parents felt during those days of remote learning. But the group then zeroing in on school curriculums, prompting a stunning rise in books challenged and removed from public school libraries. Last year alone, around 10,000 books banned from school libraries, according to PEN America. The group often singling out books that reference race, sexuality, or gender norms, showing me last year during one of their local chapter meetings some of the books they were fighting to have removed from school libraries.
If you and I were reading this to our children, it could probably be a sweet book about how boys can like pink and girls can like trucks.
So you're concerned less about a particular book and more about the conversation you're worried is happening?
Sometimes, yes. Not all the time, but most of the time.
A major trend in red states, new laws about how workplaces and schools can talk about race or sexuality. In Florida, one such law leading to a change in how slavery is taught and a ban on an AP course on Black history.
Florida is where woke goes to die.
This summer in Florida, a book about banning books banned. But while Republicans have made these classroom culture wars central to their campaigning and state legislative agendas since the COVID pandemic, recently Democrats have rallied too in an effort to fight back.
We are not going back!
Last summer, Vice President Kamala Harris flying to Florida to speak out on the changes to the curriculum there.
They want to replace history with lies.
And this year, campaigning on the issue.
We want to ban assault weapons, and they want to ban books.
Back in battleground Pennsylvania,
It's more important that we hear the stories from the people.
Cardona countering the right-wing attacks.
There is an intentional strategy to disrupt public education.
Joined by Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack and Teachers Union President Randy Weingarten.
Community, right?
At Pittsburgh's Faison School, a full-service community school that works with outside agencies to help clothe and feed students. A reminder of how much families in need often rely on public schools and federal agencies.
Kids should not have to come to school hungry.
Public education is the way for many of our students to get out of poverty. It's a ticket to middle class. It's a ticket to success. And yes, we do have some people that want to destroy it.
It's not free.
In Washington, Republican lawmakers vowing to slash federal funding, rejecting the department's request for a $3 billion budget increase. Across the country, many Republican-led states pushing to increase the use of vouchers for parents to use public dollars to subsidize private tuition costs. Critics say it could gut public school budgets. Pew Research Center found that half of Americans think public education is generally headed in the wrong direction, citing concerns about what is taught in schools, academic performance, and lack of resources. Teachers surveyed said that those hot-button issues like sexuality and gender identity actually rarely come up, but that the heated culture wars and controversial new laws are making it harder for them to do their jobs.
Many teachers in these open-ended responses specifically said, we're not indoctrinating your children.
The nation's largest teachers' unions have endorsed Harris in the presidential race. Harris tapped a former public school teacher, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, to be her running mate. Walz and Harris making their support of public schools part of their platforms.
While other states were banning books from their schools, we were banishing hunger from ours.
Hey, how are you?
On his tour, Cardona well aware that teachers have felt under attack the last few years. And that with the finger-pointing, book debates, and budget fights, the future of public education is on the ballot this November.
Our thanks to Mary Alice for that. Still much more to get to here on Prime tonight. Coming up, it is one of the most important election issues for voters and one of the most polarizing. Abortion-related measures are on the ballot in several states this election. We take a look into the referendums all across the country and break down what it means for you by the numbers.
How many elephants have you killed? True natural beauty, one of the last of its kind. But this comes at a cost. 5 countries, 5 incredible real stories of adventure, danger,
We have to go.
and deceit. Where are we going next? We got this ongoing search for the animal we've been trying to find. These are the last lands. The national parks around the world that have to be saved.
There.
Yo, partner.
We're not partners. I'm the detective and you are the consultant. I see you brought your baby to a crime scene.
She is just spectating.
You're a single mom with 3 kids pretending to be a cop.
I am not pretending. I spot things that detectives miss. Still think my theory's flimsy?
That big brain of hers is going to help us close a lot of cases.
I'm just out here super copping.
High Potential, all new Tuesdays on ABC and stream on Hulu.
Many voters next week will have a say in deciding their state's abortion laws. Since the overturning of Roe in 2022, there have been frequent tug-of-wars between legislators and citizens as to who should have a say in deciding a state's laws. In tonight's By the Numbers, we're taking a look at state abortion referenda. Abortion rights proponents in 6 states have already weighed in on referenda to change their state's abortion policies, either ensuring rights or preventing restrictions from going into effect. Next week, voters in 10 new states will see abortion-related referenda on their ballots. Most of the referenda will guarantee rights instead of curtailing them. In 8 of those 10 states, the referenda were initiated by citizens themselves. Only in 2, New York and Maryland, were the referenda drafted or referred by that state's legislature. And only in 1 state, Nebraska, will there be competing ballot measures, one broadly allowing for abortions up until fetal viability, the other basically banning it in the 2nd and 3rd trimesters. Finally, in 2 states next week, a simple majority will not be sufficient to pass the referenda. 55% will be required in Colorado, 60% in Florida. Both Florida and Colorado's referendums will generally recognize the right to an abortion, but with certain restrictions. One state where abortion will not be on the ballot is Texas. The state has no provisions for citizen-led referendums. Texas also has some of the strictest abortion laws in the country, allowing for almost no abortions and with no exceptions for rape or incest. Joining us now is Wendy Davis. She's the co-executive director of Planned Parenthood Texas. Wendy, thank you so much for joining us. Texas law does have exceptions to protect the life or health of the mother. How has that worked out?
It hasn't worked out at all, Linsey, and it demonstrates the reality that exists when you have abortion bans in place, as we do in Texas. Exceptions don't work. And the reason they don't work is they're only as good as the people who are allowed to interpret them. And Texas law is written so vaguely that doctors and hospitals are afraid to provide life-saving care to patients who need it, and unfortunately have been pushed to a point where they feel like their patients need to be literally at death's door before they can intervene, because if they're found to get it wrong, they'll spend the rest of their life in prison. And we've seen it play out time and time again that people have come close to dying as a consequence of not being able to get the care that they need here.
Since Roe v. Wade was overturned, how many women in Texas does Planned Parenthood estimate have actually traveled out of state to have an abortion?
So what we know is that it's probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 35 to more than even 50,000 people a year who are having to leave our state to get the care that they need. And unfortunately, the reality on the ground here is that there are so many people who cannot leave the state to get the care that they so very much desire. And the reasons for that are myriad. Many because of financial obstacles that keep them from being able to leave the state, many because of obligations to work or children. And as someone said to us recently, you could charter a private plane for me and I still wouldn't be able to leave because of my obligations to my children and my job. And so, as we knew would be the case, this burden has fallen most heavily on lower income women, particularly women of color. And that's where we're seeing our birth rates in the state grow, while we're seeing the birth rates of Anglos here in Texas decrease.
And Texas Senator Ted Cruz recently told Texas Monthly that abortion restrictions that state legislatures adopt simply reflect the values of the citizens. Where do Texan voters stand on abortion? Because it's my understanding that about 78% of the Texas residents believe some form of abortion should be allowed.
That's exactly right. He's completely incorrect about that. And Senator Cruz knows better than that. He knows that he's not telling the truth. He knows that the reality is the vast majority of people in our state support restoring Roe. And the fact of the matter is, because of redistricting and the fact that gerrymandered districts have led to extremists being elected to the Texas legislature, those extremists are representing a minority fraction of the people who live here in Texas. And it really, again, shows that when you turn these things over to state control.
All right, we are going to interrupt this interview because Vice President Kamala Harris is now doing a rally in the battleground state of Michigan, where she is addressing those in attendance tonight.
Go blue! So let me just say about Tim Walz, he's been such an extraordinary running mate, and he will be an extraordinary Vice President of the United States. And let me tell you why I love Coach Walz. As he travels to every corner of our country, meeting with people in small towns, big towns, everywhere in between, Coach Walz is always bringing the joy. He is always bringing the joy. He cares about people. He understands people. He understands hard work. And he understands what it means to be a leader who lifts people up instead of trying to beat people down. That is Tim Walz. And Ann Arbor, I can feel the joy tonight. Thank you all so very much. And we have some other incredible leaders with us here tonight. Mayor Taylor, thank you. Deputy County Executive Turfy, I thank you so very much. Lieutenant Governor Gilchrist. Representative Dingle, a champion for this community. And let's also send Alyssa Slotkin to the United States Senate. We need her in D.C. And I also want to thank all the labor, elected, and community leaders who are here today. And can we please hear it again for Maggie Rogers? All right. We got business to handle. Okay, so Ann Arbor, I have a question for you. Are we ready to do this? Are we ready to vote? Are we ready to win? Yes. And we will win. And we will win. So you just heard from the coach, early voting has started here in Michigan. You can vote early now through Sunday, November 3rd. And we need you to vote early, Michigan, because we have just 8 days to go, 8 days left in one of the most consequential elections of our lifetime. And as everybody here knows, this is going to be a tight race until the very end. So we have a lot of work ahead of us. But we like hard work. Hard work is good work. Hard work is joyful work. And make no mistake, we will win. We will win. And we will win because together, and we will win, yes, yes. We can keep going all night. But one of the reasons we will win is because we are all in this together. We are all in this together. People from every walk of life, understanding that the vast majority of us have so much more in common than what separates us. And we here are fighting for the future. We are fighting for the future. And we understand the opportunity that we have before us to turn the page on the fear and divisiveness that have characterized our politics for a decade because of Donald Trump. We have an opportunity to turn the page and chart a new and joyful way forward where we tap into the ambitions and we will tap into the ambitions and the aspirations and the dreams of the American people. Let me tell you something. As I travel our country, there is an overwhelming call for a fresh start. People from all walks of life, and they are calling for a new generation of leadership that is optimistic and excited about what we can do together. There is a yearning in our country for a president who will see you, who gets you, and who will fight for you. And listen, hey, on the subject of Gaza, hey guys, I hear you. On the subject of Gaza, we all want this war to end as soon as possible and get the hostages out, and I will do everything in my power to make it so. And let's be clear, we are all here because we are fighting for a democracy and for the right of people to be heard and seen. We're not about the enemy within. We know we are all in this together. That's what we are fighting for. And my whole career, of you to shout your own name. Do that. Because it's about all of us. It's about all of us. And listen, I have fought my whole career to put the people first and to put the people above partisanship. I never once asked in my career, are you a Democrat or are you a Republican? The only thing I ever asked is, how can I help you? Are you okay? And that is a major difference between Donald Trump and me, and between the two extremely different visions that he and I have for our nation. His is focused on himself and the past. Ours is focused on the future, and it is focused on the people. So together we will build a future where we bring down the cost of living. That will be my focus every single day as president, because while inflation is down and wages are up, prices are still too high. You know it and I know it. And unlike Donald Trump, who had $400 million handed to him on a silver platter, and don't forget he filed for bankruptcy 6 times, the great businessman. Unlike him, I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood with a working mother who kept a strict budget and did everything she could to make sure that my sister and I had all we needed. I come from the middle class, and I will never forget where I come from. Never. And so my common sense plan will lower the prices you pay on everything from prescription medication to groceries to housing. On the other hand, Donald Trump will raise costs on you and your family. In fact, independent economists have analyzed both of our plans and found mine will cut your costs and strengthen our economy, while his will increase inflation and lead to a recession by the middle of next year. And his agenda is laid out in Project 2025. You know, I say everywhere, and I know we've got a lot of students here, and I have to tell you, I just find it really interesting that they put that thing in writing. They put it in writing. They bound it. They published it. They handed it out. And then they expect we're not going to talk about it? Are you kidding me? And when you read it, you will see it is a detailed and dangerous blueprint for what he plans to do if he is elected president. Donald Trump will impose a 20% national sales tax on everyday basic necessities, which economists have estimated will cost the average American family an additional $4,000 a year. Contrast, on the other hand, I'm going to take on corporate price gouging. I've done it before, and I will do it again. Donald Trump will give massive tax cuts like he did before to billionaires and the biggest corporations. He did it the last time. He's going to do it again. I, on the other hand, will give middle-class tax cuts to 100 million Americans, including $6,000 for the first year of a child's life, because I understand how that will lift America's children out of poverty, which must be one of our highest goals. Donald Trump will get rid of the $35 a month cap on insulin for our seniors. He will cut Medicare and Social Security. In fact, economists say he will bankrupt Social Security in the next 6 years. And understand what that means. So many of the seniors in America, that's their only source of income. That's the only way they're able to pay their rent and buy food. I have a plan to support our seniors so they can grow older with dignity and so their families are not overwhelmed by the cost of home health care. On top of that, my plan will bring down the cost of housing, cut taxes for small businesses, because small businesses are the backbone of our economy, and lower health care costs, because I believe health care should be a right and not just a privilege of those who can afford it. Donald Trump, on the other hand, intends to end the Affordable Care Act and take us back, which would take us back to a time when insurance companies could deny people with pre-existing conditions. You remember what that was like? Well, we are not going back. We are not going back. We are not going back. We're not going back. We're not going back. We're not going back. We're not going back. And we're not going back because because we together will move forward to the future, because we believe in who we are and what is possible, and because we know it is time to turn the page. It is time to turn the page. Ours is a fight for the future, and it is a fight for freedom, like the fundamental freedom of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do. And we all remember how we got here. When Donald Trump was president, he hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did as he intended, and now in America, 1 in 3 women lives in a state with a Trump abortion ban. Many with no exceptions, even for rape and incest. I was just in Texas the other day. You know, they provide prison for life for doctors and nurses and healthcare providers for providing care. Prison for life. And no exceptions for a crime that is a violation of someone's body, and then to tell that survivor of that violation, you have no right to make a decision about what happens to your body next? That is immoral. It is immoral. And I know we all agree, one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree the government should not be telling her what to do. Not the government. And listen, you all have heard me say, I do believe Donald Trump to be an unserious man. But the consequences of him ever being president again are brutally serious. Brutally serious. Consider, on the topic we were just discussing, Donald Trump still refuses to acknowledge the pain and suffering he has caused. He insists that, quote, everyone wanted for Roe v. Wade to be overturned. Everyone wanted this? Women are being denied care during miscarriages, some only being treated when they've developed sepsis. They didn't want this. Couples trying to grow their family have been cut off in the middle of IVF treatments. They didn't want this. The men of America are seeing their daughters and wives and sisters and mothers put at risk because their rights have been taken from them. The men of America don't want this. And women have died because of these bans. How could anyone say these folks wanted this? And I pledge to you, when Congress passes a bill to restore reproductive freedoms, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. Proudly.
Proudly. And that is our show for this hour. I'm Linsey Davis. Be sure to stay tuned to ABC News Live for more context and analysis of the day's top stories. Thanks so much for streaming with us. Coming up in the next hour, with just 8 days left, both candidates are making a blitz through the battleground states, but it comes as one of them faces major fallout from a recent rally and another prepares for a major speech. And more than a third of the World Series tree species could be at risk for extinction. The steps world leaders are being urged to take.
Did you kill Mariota?
Sorry. No, I did not kill Mariota. So it was a normal day until Mary started getting sick. No one really knew what was happening. Her eyes just looked terrified.
In less than 48 hours, my mom went from her healthy self to having died.
This is a mystery. How did she
die. They begin to do this autopsy.
It's just screaming, toxin, toxin, toxin.
Did somebody intentionally do this to her?
When the tests came back, I thought, yo, holy, are you kidding me?
I had dated Adam. I was scared of him. It changed the way I see the world.
She was really afraid for her life.
I do think Bill could have killed Mary. His wife died in July, and in November, he was dating his sister-in-law.
There was nothing in the world that was making sense at that point.
Caitlin Conley was guilty as sin.
Are you okay?
I'm scared.
This girl thought she was smarter than everybody else. But there's another side to Caitlin Conley.
Well, I'm not buying this little Miss Innocent game.
Sequoia's a very small town. Everybody knows everybody.
My garden club is very divided.
People think she's innocent. I think she's guilty.
Never heard of a case like this. Maybe a thriller.
It was pure evil.
We weren't quite sure what was coming next. I know it wasn't me. Sorry. So, if it wasn't me, who was it?
Little Miss Innocent. Passion, poison, prison. Only on Hulu.
You're watching America's #1 streaming news, ABC News Live. Breaking news, exclusives, live reporting across the globe. Keep streaming with ABC News Live.
Attention teachers, no child is to be sent to the principal's office today. Kids, if you want to do prom, now's the time. Happy first day in school.
Weren't there like 4 more of these?
Yeah, we were robbed.
Hey, buy 3, get 1 free.
I'ma call your mother on you. Bring the rest back here, boy.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Linsey Davis. Thanks so much for streaming with us. It is the final sprint to the race for the White House as we are here in the state of Texas, where, as you know, everything is bigger in Texas. Immigration, abortion, and the battle for control of the U.S. Senate all loom large in the Lone Star State. With just 8 days until an election, many are calling the most consequential of our lifetime. The candidates are making their closing arguments. Former President Trump with a massive rally at Madison Square Garden in New York. More than 24 speakers addressing the packed arena with a no-holds-barred, often profane endorsement of Trump and his campaign. 24 hours tonight. The Trump campaign is on the defense after a comedian at that MSG rally Sunday made sexist, racist, and crude remarks about Vice President Harris, Puerto Ricans, and black people. The campaign itself distancing itself from the comedian who described Puerto Rico as a floating island of garbage. Meantime, Vice President Harris's largest rally to date was Friday here in Texas with Beyonce. The Harris campaign choosing the Lone Star State in part to highlight the impact of Texas's restrictive abortion laws. And tomorrow night, Harris is set to deliver what her campaign is billing as the closing argument of her 3-month campaign at the Ellipse near the White House. With 8 days to go, 45 million Americans have already cast their ballots. We are here in Texas to break it all down for you, from abortion to immigration to both candidates on the trail in the battlegrounds today. But we begin with our senior congressional correspondent, Rachel Scott, on the trail in Georgia.
Tonight in Georgia, former President Donald Trump gushing about his massive weekend rally at New York's Madison Square Garden.
So last night we had a great rally at Madison Square Garden.
But that rally was marked by racism, sexism, and vitriol. Trump's campaign now on the defensive after speakers like this.
I don't know if you guys know this, but there's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. Yeah, I think it's called Puerto Rico.
A Trump campaign spokeswoman saying that joke doesn't reflect the views of President Trump or the campaign. But this speaker was invited by the Trump campaign, and there was more than just that. This is what he said about Latinos overall.
And these Latinos, they love making babies too, just know that. They do.
The rest of those words, too profane to play. He also made a crude joke about black people and watermelons. And he wasn't the only person on stage to use racist language. Tucker Carlson mocking Kamala Harris, the first black and South Asian vice president.
Votes because she's just so impressive. As the first Samoan, Malaysian, low IQ, former California prosecutor ever to be elected president.
Today, Vice President Harris firing back, accusing Trump of fueling hate and division, saying Americans are exhausted.
What he did last night is not a discovery. It is just more of the same and maybe more vivid than usual. Donald Trump spends full time trying to have Americans point their finger at each other, fans the fuel of hate and division, and that's why people are exhausted with him.
Those words about Puerto Rico sparking particular outrage. While the rally was going on, Harris happened to be greeting voters at a Puerto Rican restaurant in Philadelphia. Her campaign releasing this video.
Puerto Ricans deserve better.
Highly influential Puerto Rican superstar Bad Bunny then sharing it with his 46 million Instagram followers.
There is so much at stake in this election for Puerto Rican voters and for Puerto Rico.
He also shared this part of the video.
I will never forget what Donald Trump did and what he did not do when Puerto Rico needed a caring and a competent leader. He abandoned the island, tried to block aid after back-to-back devastating hurricanes, and offered nothing more than paper towels and insults.
In battleground Pennsylvania, Governor Josh Shapiro speaking directly to the state's 500,000 Puerto Rican residents.
If Donald Trump really wanted to disassociate himself with that, the first thing he would have said when he came onto the stage at Madison Square Garden was, hey, listen, I heard that person's attempted humor. It was not funny. I stand with the Puerto Rican community. He didn't do that.
And Linsey, sources tell ABC News tonight that Donald Trump's campaign debated over whether to even send out a statement condemning those words, calling Puerto Rico a floating island of garbage. And again, this was a speaker that was invited by the campaign to deliver remarks, and he was not the only one that made crude, racist, and sexist remarks at that rally last night. The question now is whether or not it was even worth it, with just days to go in the final stretch as Donald Trump is trying to appeal to Latino and Hispanic voters, key demographics in this election. He has a rally here in Georgia tonight, then he heads to all-important Pennsylvania tomorrow, Linsey.
All right, Rachel Scott for us. Thanks so much, Rachel. A short time ago, I spoke with Luis Miranda, political strategist and community organizer and the founding president of the Hispanic Federation and chairperson of the Latino Victory Fund, an organization dedicated to building political power in the Latino community. Luis, thank you so much for joining us. First, I just want to get your reaction from those comments about Puerto Rico from the comedian at last night's rally.
It's not the first time that Puerto Ricans are insulted by Trump or his people. We remember when Hurricane Maria hit Puerto Rico, how he withheld aid that Congress had appropriated to help Puerto Rico and used as an excuse that we were lazy and they wanted everything done for us. So I think we're going to mobilize some more, and we're going to go to those battleground states and make sure that we prove him wrong. We are not garbage, and we are not lazy, and we're all American citizens ready to vote in this election.
The Trump campaign says that the comedian's words do not reflect its views. Do you believe that this has no bearing on the former president's campaign platform?
Listen, I listened to 5 minutes while I was waiting for you of the rally that it's taking place in Georgia right now. And in those 5 minutes, he criticized Michelle Obama. I wondered if she is now included in the list of enemies that he is going to prosecute afterwards. He then talked about transgender and how that it's horrible. He talked about people coming from the border being criminals. He's talking about Latinos. He helped the crowd chant, "Lock her up." He criticized the fake news. This is in 5 minutes, which means that's what is coming out of his mouth. When you organized a rally, when you organized a political event for yourself, for your party, every word that is said at that event represents who you are and the aspirations of your party and what you want to put in place if you were to be elected. This is exactly who Donald Trump is.
Do you think that this moment will galvanize Puerto Rican voters who were maybe going to sit this one out or change the mind of those who were planning on voting for Trump?
Listen, most people are going to vote for policies. We're no different, Latinos. But what Trump did in this rally, it's that the insult appealed to our heart, hurt our heart. And those insults then mobilized people who were probably supporting the Democrats and Vice President Harris now said to themselves, you know what? I was going to sit it out because I didn't think it was important, but I don't want this guy in the White House. I think the Vice President said it best. We are exhausted of this rhetoric, exhausted of this man constantly pitting one group against each other. And I think we are ready to move forward and close this page forever.
Mr. Luis Miranda, we thank you so much for your time and insight. Appreciate it. Vice President Kamala Harris had several stops in Michigan today, focusing on the economy at a semiconductor manufacturing facility in Saginaw, Michigan. She promised to create high-skilled jobs for people who do not have a college degree. And what were Michigan's Governor Gretchen Whitmer and Kamala Harris doing at a bar together? You'll see that in a moment. ABC's Mary Bruce is in Michigan.
Tonight, Vice President Kamala Harris focusing on all-important Michigan, lasering in on the economy and boosting American manufacturing.
We're not going to have China beat us in the competition for the 21st century.
Harris visiting a semiconductor facility in Saginaw, promising as president to focus on creating highly skilled jobs for people without college degrees.
I believe that as we think of industries of the future and the future of America's workforce, we need to get in front of this idea that the only high-skilled jobs require a college degree. It's just not true.
As she travels through the key state, Harris saying she hears what voters are telling her about their kitchen table concerns.
They want to make sure that we're going to lower prices. They know that the price of groceries, for example, is too high. I know it too.
Over the weekend, Michelle Obama joining Harris on the trail for the first time. In searing remarks, the former First Lady said Harris is being held to a higher standard than Donald Trump.
So I hope you'll forgive me if I'm a little frustrated that some of us are choosing to ignore Donald Trump's gross incompetence while asking Kamala to dazzle us at every turn.
And in a campaign where abortion is a top issue, as Trump boasts about appointing 3 of the Supreme Court justices who overturned Roe versus Wade, Michelle Obama with an impassioned plea to men to take women's lives seriously.
Are you as men prepared to look into the eyes of the women and children you love and tell them that you supported this assault on our safety? And to the women listening, we have every right to demand that the men in our lives do better by us. We have to use our voices to make these choices clear to the men that we love. Our lives are worth more than their anger and disappointment. And we are more than just baby-making vessels.
Harris herself acknowledging she has to make up ground among men. Microphones picking up her conversation with Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer at a bar in Kalamazoo.
I've been bugging your whole team. I'm like, okay, you gotta do this and this. But everyone's trying to sit really good. Yeah.
Oh, we have microphones and I was listening to everything. Oh. I didn't realize that. Okay. So, well,
you'll
now
bleep my F words.
We just told all the family secrets.
All right, thanks to Mary Bruce for that. I want to take a look here at former President Obama campaigning for Vice President Harris tonight, speaking in Pennsylvania. John Legend and Bruce Springsteen also took to the stage earlier this evening.
The pandemic caused price hikes.
And next tonight, the FBI is joining an investigation after 3 ballot drop boxes were set on fire in the Pacific Northwest, destroying hundreds of ballots. Burning paper was pulled out of one drop box in Vancouver, Washington before dawn this morning. What officials now say voters should do next? Here's our Chief Justice correspondent, Pierre Thomas.
Tonight, the FBI on the hunt for a suspected arsonist behind 3 fiery attacks on ballot drop boxes, destroying hundreds of ballots in the Pacific Northwest.
We do have smoke coming out of the ballot box.
Officials say the fires, only miles apart in Portland, Oregon and Vancouver, Washington, were sparked by incendiary devices attached to the outside of the drop boxes.
Any form of voter intimidation, disruption, blocking of access, or vandalism at these sites will not be tolerated.
Authorities concerned that someone could get hurt, releasing a photo of the suspect's Volvo. This box set ablaze just before dawn in Vancouver, Washington. Officers prying open the box, then pulling out ballots still burning. An hour earlier in Portland, a second fire.
It looks like there's some kind of device attached to the ballot box.
Luckily, only 3 ballots damaged because of fire suppressant inside the box. It comes as Homeland Security officials today issued a new bulletin warning that domestic violent extremists are posting online threats of violence toward election officials or infrastructure to prevent perceived fraud or to retaliate against it. State officials in Washington are calling the arson's act of terror as they step up patrols in the region. Voters who are concerned their ballots might be impacted can contact their local election office or track their ballots online to see if they've been received. Lindsay?
Pierre, thank you. In the Middle East, Iran's president has vowed a, quote, appropriate response following Israel's attack on military targets Saturday local time. But Iran's president added that they do not seek war. Israeli officials say they hit 20 military targets in what they called a limited attack, using more than 100 aircraft to strike Iran's air defenses and missile production facilities. Iran said 4 of their soldiers were killed in the attack. Israel's parliament has passed 2 laws which severely restrict the UN aid agency responsible for distributing aid in Gaza, otherwise known as UNRWA. One law bans the agency from providing any relief to Palestinian refugees inside Israel. The second would sever all diplomatic ties Israel has with the agency. This comes as Israeli attacks have ramped up in northern Gaza, where only 1 hospital remains functional. And we still have much more to get to tonight. Coming up, Texas's Attorney General has promised to protect against voter fraud, but are there signs of any, and do his methods help root it out? The next, the former president of Bolivia's car is hit with a barrage of bullets, who he's blaming for the attack.
America's #1 most watched daytime talk show is ABC's The View.
You all heard it here first. I love it. I'm there for it.
Hot topics, political views.
That's what we're about.
Voices that matter. It all goes down right here.
That's why it's called the what? The View. I love it. I'm all in. Second that. This is going to be must-see TV, and so much could happen.
ABC Election Night.
Are you ready to make your voices heard?
We will soon be a great nation again.
America, we are not going back. We fight for the future.
Our country will be greater than ever before.
Who will be your next president?
When we fight, we win.
We will make America great again.
Election Night, this is where America turns for answers. ABC Election Night, live.
Welcome back, everyone. We're tracking several headlines around the world. In the country of Georgia tonight, thousands have taken to the street to demonstrate after the governing party won an election marked with reports of voting irregularities. The word stolen was projected onto the front of Soviet-era parliament buildings in the capital city. Some election monitors say they registered incidents of vote buying, voter intimidation, and ballot stuffing that could have affected the outcome, but stopped short of saying the election was rigged. The former president of Bolivia claims his car was hit by gunfire in an attempt on his life. Evo Morales was not injured and blamed the government for the attack, which he called a failure. 14 bullets did hit the car, injuring his driver. The government has denied responsibility. More than 1/3 of the world's tree species are at risk. That's according to the first comprehensive look at trees by the world's leading scientific authority. In all, 38% were found to be at risk of extinction. The International Union for Conservation of Nature urged the world to take steps to preserve our biodiversity. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton is promising the Lone Star State that he will protect their vote. But is there any actual voter fraud to protect against? The Attorney General set up a voter fraud email tip line a few months ago. Investigative reporter Kevin Ozebek from our partner station KTRK in Houston went through more than 1,000 emails sent to that tip line. And instead of leads of voter fraud, most taught and troll Attorney General Paxton.
It's been 16 years since my mother passed away, and this is the first time we've ever gotten anything like this.
Wayne Schneider of Manor, Texas, is one of the few with a legitimate concern we found as we poured through the emails. His wife emailed Ken Paxton's voter fraud tip line after voter registration paperwork arrived for his mom, who has long passed. But even still, he's not suspecting voter fraud.
Do you think somebody was trying to vote in your mother's name?
I don't think so.
13 investigators obtained 1,059 of the emails sent to Paxton's tip line. Of all of those, we only found 31 emails from people appearing to believe they have information on illegal voting.
How rare is actual voter fraud?
It is very rare, and most often when it happens by accident.
The Heritage Foundation, a conservative think tank, lists only 6 criminal convictions since 2020 in Texas on its election fraud database. For some perspective here, more than 11.3 million Texans voted in the 2020 presidential election. But what there is plenty of in this stash of emails are jokes and jabs at Paxton. One person wrote there was illegal voting happening at the Burger King. Another sent this tip line a 79-page transcript of Jerry Seinfeld's B-movie. Others signed it up for newsletters from Taco Bell, Victoria's Secret, and Pottery Barn, just to name a few. Images like Kamala Harris on a Doritos bag and the poo emoji were emailed in too. But what bombarded the voter fraud tip line was this: an old mugshot of Paxton from when he was booked on securities fraud violations. Those charges were dropped, but that mugshot got a second life as it flooded the fraud line.
Investigative reporter Kevin Ozebek joins us now from Houston. Hey, Kevin, we can see that people are using this tip line really to poke fun at the Attorney General, but many do have serious concerns about the effect of this tip line. Why do some here in Texas feel that this tip line sends a dangerous message?
Well, Linsey, some worry that this tip line only continues to fuel this idea that there's widespread voter fraud when simply that isn't the case. As one election historian put it to us, the real issue is we have millions of Americans who are eligible to vote, but they don't. It's not the other way around. And Linsey, we do want to stress that when we did request these emails, we got a letter back from Ken Paxton's office saying some of the emails are going to be withheld because they contain credible tips. But Linsey, his office isn't answering any of our questions, like if any of those tips have led them to launch any investigations into voter fraud. Linsey?
Very interesting investigation on your part, Kevin. We appreciate it. Kevin Ozebek with our partner station, KTRK. And still to come here on Prime tonight, it was a sector hit hard during the pandemic, but it has now made a stunning comeback. The demand for manufacturing workers is on the rise, with companies offering hefty scholarships as they race to upskill more workers. We'll tell you more when we come back. Stay with us.
I did terrible things. I hurt a lot of people.
I know who you are.
Ball is in the air. You're special.
Yes, it's a touchdown.
What if God made me this way?
FX's American Sports Story. Aaron Hernandez. All new Tuesdays at 10 on FX. Stream on Hulu.
When you're 61 years old,
You have very few opportunities to change your life. This time, I have to be ready. This is about everybody like me. I see a future, which is not what I felt like for a really long time. I don't feel invisible now.
America's #1 most-watched daytime talk show is ABC's The View.
You all heard it here first. I love it. I'm there for it.
Hot topics, political views.
That's what we're about.
Voices that matter. It all goes down right here.
That's why it's called the what? The View. I love it. I'm all in. Second that. This is going to be must-see TV, and so much could happen.
ABC Election Night.
Are you ready to make your voices heard?
We will soon be a great nation again.
America, we are not going back. We fight for the future.
Our country will be greater than ever before.
Who will be your next president?
When we fight, we win.
We will make America great again.
Election Night, this is where America turns for answers. ABC Election Night, live.
Welcome back, everyone. While the Midwest and Northeast have shed manufacturing jobs, here in Texas, those jobs have actually increased since the pandemic. As the saying goes, everything is bigger in Texas, and the state's housing boom and related increase in population have enticed employers to set up shop. Reporter Nick Notario at our partner station at Houston KTRK has this story.
If you like to build things and working with your hands, there are lots of manufacturing jobs for you. Companies from petrochemical and construction.
Once it's put together, you're kind of proud of yourself. You kind of take that personal, accolade and kind of, excited about the fact that you did this and it was by your hands.
During the pandemic, the sector was hit hard, but researchers say it's bounced back. Not everywhere, though. Northern states, including New York and Washington, have lost tens of thousands of manufacturing jobs. It's different down south. Georgia and Florida have added thousands, but none come close to Texas, which has added nearly 50,000.
Economic success as a state and its demographic success as well is, I think, a big reason.
Nationwide, manufacturing jobs have climbed to 12.9 million. In the Houston area, there are 5,000 more jobs since before the pandemic. Even more are expected on the way. To meet the demand, local economic experts are racing to upskill workers.
We are ready and willing and able to provide those scholarship opportunities to people in the community.
Places like Workforce Solutions offers up to a $12,000 scholarship to train students. Training that may not take as much time as you think. Colleges have certification programs that work with employers to get students ready in weeks. There's also another option.
Most of the jobs now are offering their on-site training where you're working and you're getting paid as well to go through the training.
A sector that's bounced back big in Texas and providing Houstonians with all kinds of options.
So many glad about that big bounce back. Our thanks to Nick Notario from our partner station, KTRK, here in Dallas. Thanks so much for watching. That is our show for this hour. I'm Linsey Davis. We appreciate you streaming with us, and stay with us. Up next is our new program leading to Election Day, Race for the White House, right after this.
Election Night.
Are you ready to make your voices heard?
We will soon be a great nation again.
America, we are not going back. We fight for the future.
Our country will be greater than ever before.
Who will be your next president?
When we fight, we win.
We will make America great again.
Election Night, this is where America turns for answers. ABC Election Night, live.
Since I was 16, playing live has been a deep and lasting part of who I am. I grew up with Bruce, and he was the most introverted guy you'd ever met in your life. And now he's like the world's greatest entertainer. It blows my mind. Time moves quickly when you are on the road, but it's too late to stop now.
How many elephants have you killed? True natural beauty, one of the last of its kind. But this comes at a cost. 5 countries, 5 incredible real stories of adventure, danger,
We have to go.
and deceit. Where are we going next? We got this ongoing search for the animal we've been trying to find. These are the last lands. The national parks around the world that have to be saved.
When I flick this switch, there'll be a horrible noise and a terrible odor.
Will it hurt?
Pain like you've never known.
Seems risky.
I am much satisfied.
What? You scared? This is happiness.
We love Halloween. Got me.
He's a bit silly.
Turning the machine off. Do you feel good?
One great idea can change your life.
That's the American dream right there.
I want to be on a team with you.
Shark Tank, new Fridays on ABC and stream on Hulu.
8 days to go, and more Americans turn to David Muir and World News Tonight than any other newscast. The race, a dead heat. With so much at stake, turn to David Muir and the team on election night. And ABC's World News Tonight with David Muir, the #1 newscast in America.
Reporting from Taipei, Taiwan, I'm Britt Clement. Wherever the story is, we'll take you there. You're streaming ABC News Live.
Who would want open borders where prisoners from all over the world are allowed to come into our country?
Tonight, we're in Texas, and the top issue here for the 2024 race, immigration. The fight over the issue in this country has been top of mind for former President Donald Trump since the day he announced he was running for president again, referring to the men, women, and children coming into America as agents of crime and corruption, accusing them of eating pets, escaping asylums, and flooding our borders as he puts pressure on Vice President Kamala Harris. But is that rhetoric working to gain the former president new voters, or only cement the ones already in his favor?
I reject the false choice that suggests we must either choose between securing our border or creating a system of immigration that is safe, orderly, and humane. We can and we must do both.
She sought to project a tougher stance on illegal migration and address one of her biggest vulnerabilities just a month ago during a rare visit to the border. Now Vice President Harris is finding it's that issue of immigration that could make or break her chance at the White House. We speak with the co-chair of the Harris-Walz campaign for an in-depth look at how they could turn one of the vice president's greatest weaknesses around with just 8 days until the election.
We need clear legal pathways for people seeking to come into our country.
On day one, I will launch the largest deportation program in American history.
All that and more in our ABC News Live primetime coverage, the race for the White House. Good evening, everyone. I'm Linsey Davis. Thank you so much for streaming with us. Welcome to a special edition of the Race to the White House. We are here in the state of Texas, where, as you know, the saying goes, everything is bigger in Texas. Immigration, abortion, and the battle for control of the U.S. Senate all loom large in the Lone Star State. With just 8 days until an election many are calling the most consequential of our lifetime. Candidates are making their closing arguments. Former President Trump with a massive rally at Madison Square Garden in New York over the weekend. More than 24 speakers addressing the packed arena with a no-holds-barred, often profane endorsement of Trump and his campaign. 24 hours later, tonight, the Trump campaign is on the defense after a comedian at that MSG rally Sunday made sexist, racist, and crude remarks about Vice President Harris, Puerto Ricans, and black people. The campaign is distancing itself from the comedian who described Puerto Rico as a floating island of garbage. Meantime, Vice President Harris's largest rally to date was Friday here in the state of Texas with Beyonce. The Harris campaign chose the Lone Star State in part to highlight the impact of Texas's restrictive abortion laws. And Harris tomorrow night is set to deliver what her campaign is billing the closing argument of her 3-month campaign at the Ellipse near the White House. With 8 days to go, 45 million Americans have already cast their ballots. And here in Texas, it's a state that has gained hundreds of thousands of voters since the 2020 election. What impact will those new voters have from abortion to immigration? We'll break it all down for you. And we're standing by to hear from a senior member of the Harris campaign. But we do begin with senior congressional correspondent Rachel Scott.
Tonight in Georgia, former President Donald Trump gushing about his massive weekend rally at New York's Madison Square Garden.
So last night we had a great rally at Madison Square Garden.
But that rally was marked by racism, sexism, and vitriol. Trump's campaign now on the defensive after speakers like this.
I don't know if you guys know this, but there's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. Yeah, I think it's called Puerto Rico.
A Trump campaign spokeswoman saying that joke doesn't reflect the views of President Trump or the campaign. But this speaker was invited by the Trump campaign. And there was more than just that. This is what he said about Latinos overall.
And these Latinos, they love making babies, too. Just know that. They do.
The rest of those words, too profane to play. He also made a crude joke about black people and watermelons. And he wasn't the only person on stage to use racist language. Tucker Carlson mocking Kamala Harris, the first black and South Asian vice president.
Votes because she's just so impressive. As the first Samoan, Malaysian, low IQ, former California prosecutor ever to be elected president.
Today, Vice President Harris firing back, accusing Trump of fueling hate and division, saying Americans are exhausted.
What he did last night is not a discovery. It is just more of the same and maybe more vivid than usual. Donald Trump spends full time trying to have Americans point their finger at each other. Fans the fuel of hate and division, and that's why people are exhausted with him.
Those words about Puerto Rico sparking particular outrage. While the rally was going on, Harris happened to be greeting voters at a Puerto Rican restaurant in Philadelphia. Her campaign releasing this video.
Puerto Ricans deserve better.
Highly influential Puerto Rican superstar Bad Bunny then sharing it with his 46 million Instagram followers.
There is so much at stake in this election for Puerto Rican voters and for Puerto Rico.
He also shared this part of the video.
I will never forget what Donald Trump did and what he did not do when Puerto Rico needed a caring and a competent leader. He abandoned the island, tried to block aid after back-to-back devastating hurricanes, and offered nothing more than paper towels and insults.
In battleground Pennsylvania, Governor Josh Shapiro speaking directly to the state's 500,000 Puerto Rican residents.
If Donald Trump really wanted to disassociate himself with that, the first thing he would have said when he came onto the stage at Madison Square Garden was, hey, listen, I heard that person's attempted humor. It was not funny. I stand with the Puerto Rican community. He didn't do that.
Our thanks to Rachel Scott. Vice President Kamala Harris had several stops in Michigan today, focusing on the economy. At a semiconductor manufacturing facility in Saginaw, Michigan, she promised to create high-skilled jobs for people who do not have a college degree. And what were Michigan's Governor Gretchen Whitmer and Kamala Harris doing at a bar together? You'll see that in a moment. ABC's Mary Bruce reports in from Michigan.
Tonight, Vice President Kamala Harris focusing on all-important Michigan, lasering in on the economy and boosting American manufacturing.
We're not going to have China beat us in the competition for the 21st century.
Harris visiting a semiconductor facility in Saginaw, promising as president to focus on creating highly skilled jobs for people without college degrees.
I believe that as we think of industries of the future and the future of America's workforce, we need to get in front of this idea that the only high-skilled jobs require a college degree. It's just not true.
As she travels through the key state, Harris saying she hears what voters are telling her about their kitchen table concerns.
They want to make sure that we're going to lower prices. They know that the price of groceries, for example, is too high. I know it too.
Over the weekend, Michelle Obama joining Harris on the trail for the first time. In searing remarks, the former First Lady said Harris is being held to a higher standard than Donald Trump.
So
I hope you'll forgive me if I'm a little frustrated that some of us are choosing to ignore Donald Trump's gross incompetence while asking Kamala to dazzle us at every turn.
And in a campaign where abortion is a top issue, as Trump boasts about appointing 3 of the Supreme Court justices who overturned Roe versus Wade, Michelle Obama with an impassioned plea to men to take women's lives seriously.
Are you as men prepared to look into the eyes of the women and children you love and tell them that you supported this assault on our safety? And to the women listening, we have every right to demand that the men in our lives do better by us. We have to use our voices to make these choices clear to the men that we love. Our lives are worth more than their anger and disappointment. And we are more than just baby-making vessels.
Harris herself acknowledging she has to make up ground among men. Microphones picking up her conversation with Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer at a bar in Kalamazoo.
I've been bugging your whole team. I'm like, okay, we gotta do this and this, but everyone's trying to set Yeah.
Oh, we have microphones and I'm just listening to everything. Oh, I didn't realize that. Okay. So, well,
you'll
now
bleep
you tell
my
us.
F words.
We just told all the family secrets.
All right, and that was Mary Bruce reporting. Maria is just joining me right now. And Maria, of course, there's been a lot of conversation about immigration all along throughout this campaign. Just give us a sense. You've been hearing what was said. That's getting a lot of attention just now, in particular with the Puerto Rican community, from what was said over the weekend, yesterday at Madison Square Garden, with regard to Puerto Rico being an island of garbage. But really, as you and I were discussing earlier, we've heard this kind of rhetoric now for months. It seems to be intensifying at this point. What do you say to the people who really just aren't sure? Should I be afraid? Are the migrants taking the hurricane relief money? Is crime on the rise?
I feel like that's a conversation I'm having all the time. And what I tell people is, obviously, when you're at these or you're watching these Trump rallies, I mean, he is obviously pandering to our particular base of people. These are people that are going to support him in whatever he says. But in particular, when you're talking about immigration, what I do try to tell people is like, look, the apprehension numbers, the encounter numbers, they are much lower than they have been in years along the southern border right now. But if you look at more specifically what happened at the rally in Puerto Rico, yes, a lot of people will say, well, why does it matter anyway? People that live in Puerto Rico can't vote, so is that a big deal? And the reality is like they may not be able to vote on that actual island, but they have family and lots of it here in our country. Those are the people that are going to go to the polls and vote because of what just happened and what went down. So I do think that people need to obviously do their own homework and research when it comes to immigration. I mean, obviously what we saw yesterday is just the tip of the iceberg. We're going to hear a lot more about mass deportation, shutting down the open borders, and really what Trump can do that Harris can't. And I think the biggest issue that we're going to have is that Harris just isn't known for fact-checking Trump when it comes to this particular issue.
All right, let's ask you to fact-check. What are the numbers when it comes to crime and the number of immigrants coming over the border?
Listen, I think when it comes to crime, we hear a lot about, well, they're bringing migrant crime to our country. You should be concerned because we can make our country safer if you vote for Trump. Right now, what we are seeing, the latest numbers coming out, is that basically violent crime is down in our country, specifically when you're talking about murders, because we hear him talking about a lot of times, the violent murderers, the rapists, those crimes, we've seen the recent numbers, they are down. And also, just to clarify, there is no such thing as quote unquote migrant crime. There is no law enforcement official out there that is going to be able to come in and charge someone with migrant crime, because there is no such thing. When we're looking at the numbers, we also want to talk a little bit about non-citizen voting. That's another piece of information or nugget that you always hear at these rallies. And I think that is just Trump laying down the base, the possibility that he may lose. He wants to blame it on something. He's going to talk about election fraud and about people voting that shouldn't be voting. But really, there is no data that supports that sort of rhetoric. I mean, really, we've seen GOP-led states that have come out and actually checked their rolls recently recently and have found a minuscule amount, a tiny fraction of people that are voting that are non-citizens. It is nothing like the masses that Trump has continued to talk about.
All right, always appreciate your time and insight, Maria Villarreal. Thank you. Very good to be here with you in Texas. And joining us now is the Harris campaign co-chair, former New Orleans Mayor Mitch Landrieu. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Kamala Harris frequently says on the trail, we're the underdog. 8 days out, is that how the campaign views this in those 7 key battleground states?
Well, listen, we have always said from the beginning that this was going to be a very close race. Anybody tells you that they know how it's going to turn out really doesn't know what they're talking about. It's trying to figure out the exact spot that a hurricane's going to land. You just can't do it. We have a great ground game. We are working really, really hard. The candidate is doing an unbelievable job. And tomorrow, she's going to give her closing argument to the people of America. She's a prosecutor, as you may remember, and she's going to talk about the stark choice that the nation is going to face on next Tuesday. Somebody's going to be sitting behind the Resolute desk that is behind in the White House that's going to be the backdrop tomorrow night. And we can either choose Donald Trump, who's going to take us backwards. He's going to give us a very dark vision of America like they gave us yesterday in Madison Square Garden, which was just beyond belief. He is going to be a president that engages in grievance and has an enemies list. Or you can choose Kamala Harris, who's talked about a new way forward, talked about preserving democracy, protecting all of our freedoms, especially a woman's right to choose, and then providing incredible opportunity for people, building manufacturing jobs in the United States, making sure that people's costs are low, and fighting against the big companies to make sure that you've got a better chance to build for your family. And that's what you're going to see tomorrow night.
What do you make of the early voting numbers so far? 45 million. Does the campaign think that there's enough enthusiasm among Democrats? And can you still hear me? Oh, I think we've lost the connection there. All right, and we'll come right back in a little bit. Immigration is talked about a lot on the campaign trail, but how important is it to voters, and what methods do they support? We take a look at the polls next.
I did terrible things. I hurt a lot of people.
I know who you are.
Ball is in the air! You're special.
Yes, it's a touchdown.
What if God made me this way?
FX's American Sports Story. Aaron Hernandez. All new Tuesdays at 10 on FX. Stream on Hulu.
This ship is heaven. There should be no guilt on a pleasure cruise. Doctor, it's your job to keep everybody alive.
No pulse. She's in VFib. 1, 2, 3. Clear.
I have a pulse.
You're gonna be okay.
Yo, partner.
We're not partners. I'm the detective and you are the consultant. I see you brought your baby to a crime scene.
She is just spectating.
You're a single mom with 3 kids pretending to be a cop.
I am not pretending. I spot things that detectives miss. Still think my theory's flimsy?
That big brain of hers is going to help us close a lot of cases.
I'm just out here super copping.
High Potential, all new Tuesdays on ABC and stream on Hulu.
ABC Election Night.
Are you ready to make your voices heard?
We will soon be a great nation again.
America, we are not going back. We fight for the future.
Our country will be greater than ever before.
Who will be your next president?
When we fight, we win.
We will make America great again.
Election Night, this is where America turns for answers. ABC Election Night, live.
Welcome back, everyone. Immigration has been called one of the top issues going into the election by voters. For a closer look, we welcome 538's Galen Druk. Galen, welcome back. Just how many Americans say immigration is their top issue?
Lindsay, there are a couple different ways to look at this, but I think the most useful is looking at Gallup, because they have been asking this question for a long time. what is the most important problem facing the country? And according to that poll, 21% say that it's immigration. For comparison, about 45% say the economy, 17% say poor governmental leadership, and then everything else is in the low to mid single digits. And just to contextualize how much immigration has increased as an important issue for Americans, about 2 years ago, just 6% said it was the most important issue facing the country. So as we saw apprehensions at the southern border go up during Biden's administration, the concern amongst the American public also went up and eventually spread from just Republicans who saw this as a priority to then independents and increasingly Democrats, as blue state governors and blue city mayors also started talking about the migrant crisis. So it has been on the rise.
And who do voters think has a better handle on immigration policies?
Yeah, it's pretty clear in the polling. ABC News just conducted polling with Ipsos, and by a 12 percentage point margin, Americans said that they prefer Trump on the issue of immigration. And that's in a poll where Harris led by 4 points nationally overall. So what that tells you is that there are millions of Americans who actually think Trump would be better on immigration, but plan on voting for Harris. And that's something of a turnaround. I mean, this was one of Trump's more unpopular issues back when he came down the elevator in 2015. And when he was in office, I mean, he got some of his worst approval ratings during family separation, which was a super unpopular policy. But of course, now, as you can see, according to the polling, as the migrant crisis has risen in the polling that I just mentioned, voters increasingly are turning to the harsher rhetoric and policies of Trump as a response.
Mass deportations, that's been a repeated promise from President Trump, despite many who say the logistics would be a nightmare, it's too expensive. How do Americans feel about the idea of deporting undocumented migrants?
Yeah, Lindsay, this really gets at sort of what I was just saying, how the country has done something of a 180 on this issue. So today, in that ABC News Ipsos poll that I mentioned, 56% of Americans say they support mass deportations of all of the immigrants in the country illegally. That is a big turnaround from where we were a decade ago, when policies like building a wall along the southern border and mass deportations got a minority of support, just about a third of Americans supporting those. And yes, they were really popular amongst Republicans, but Trump had a difficult time engaging the majority of the country on these kinds of harsher policies. But we have seen that turnaround, and today a majority of Americans are supporting them. And far from having to sort of moderate in some sense on the issue, Trump is leaning into it, and Harris has instead had to moderate her party's positions. In 2019, she supported things like decriminalizing crossing the border and the like, and she's gone to the border and had to speak in more hawkish tones on immigration. And, ultimately the Biden administration as well supported the bipartisan border bill, which engaged conservative Republicans in a bid to beef up security at the border and make turning away asylum seekers easier. So we have seen the Democratic Party pivot more towards the center on this issue, while Republicans and Trump have remained quite hawkish.
All right, Galen Druk, always appreciate talking the numbers with you. Thank you so much. I know we'll continue doing it in the last 8-day stretch. Joining us now for more analysis is ABC News political contributor and former U.S. Senator from North Dakota, Heidi Heitkamp, and Tricia McLaughlin, a Republican strategist and former senior advisor for Vivek Ramaswamy. Heidi, let's start with you. Looking ahead, tomorrow, Vice President Harris is set to give her closing argument at the Ellipse in Washington, D.C., the site of Trump's speech right before the insurrection. Is that a fitting end note for the Harris campaign?
Well, I think absolutely. I think she's going to use some of the most recent examples to show why we are headed on the wrong track if we reelect Donald Trump to the presidency, and how we need to basically not go back and to go forward. When we look at the opportunity that she has tomorrow to have a big national audience, have a big crowd, kind of her response to what happened in New York, I think she's going to nail it. I think she's going to hit it out of the park. But let's not fool ourselves. You just heard some pretty tough numbers on the immigration discussion that we have, in this country. And one of the reasons why I would tell you that immigration is mass deportations have been supported is because you haven't really had anyone arguing the other side. I mean, can you imagine if tomorrow you said, okay, everybody in this country is out illegally, who's here illegally is out, what that would do to the American economy? And so I think we've got to be practical about where we move forward. Hopefully she will, kind of get that line where she needs to go in terms of immigration, tough on the border, making sure we have border security, but also looking at immigration as not just an emotional issue, but also an economic issue.
And Tricia, I want to bring you back in here. We just learned former President Trump will give remarks to the press tomorrow morning ahead of the vice president's speech. Is there anything that he can say to distract from what we might hear from Vice President Harris and be effective?
Well, I don't think he necessarily needs to distract. We know that Kamala Harris's closing argument to the American people is twofold. Donald Trump is Hitler 2.0 and abortion. And this is really a change election, Lindsey. As you know, 60% of Americans say that they want change from the Biden-Harris administration. Americans are paying 20% higher prices at the grocery store, 30% higher prices at the gas pump. Of course, we're facing multiple wars, both in the Middle East and Ukraine, and really instability at large, largely due to Biden-Harris incompetence. And of course, you all have been covering the immigration crisis, where more than 50% of Americans want mass deportations. This is coming off of when Kamala Harris in 2019, though she's backed off multiple of her positions, she said things like that she would defund ICE. She compared ICE to the KKK. She said she would legalize border crossings and that she would give illegal immigrants gender transition surgery paid for by the taxpayer. These are very unpopular policies, and since this is a #2 issue, it really speaks to the fact Americans don't have a lot of trust for Kamala Harris on these issues.
And Heidi, we hear Vice President Harris constantly hit the issues of abortion, immigration, labor, while also making claims of Trump not being fit for office. But what should her focus be 8 days out?
I think she needs to remind people that it is time for a new generation of leadership and that she represents that new generation. It's not going back to all the rancor and all. I mean, there's going to be people on the MAGA side. They're already voting. They're enthusiastic about Donald Trump. People are enthusiastic about Kamala. Now she needs to make a closing argument to somebody who is still sitting on the fence, who may say, I don't like either one of them. She needs to explain why it is that she is the better choice. And I think her best argument is, aren't you tired of what you saw last night at Madison Square Garden, where somebody calls Puerto Rico an island of garbage? Aren't you tired of waking up wondering what crazy thing got said last night? And don't you want to go back to arguing policy, dealing with the problems of this country? And Donald Trump is a distraction. And I agree. I don't ever use the Nazi word when it comes to Donald Trump, but he is a distraction and he is a divider, and she needs to make the point that she will unite the country around new ideas. She'll engage in the debate. She'll be a leader for everyone, and I think she'll do that. It's going to be at a very high level.
All right, Heidi Heitkamp, Tricia McLaughlin, we thank you both so much for your time tonight. Really appreciate you joining us. And that is our show for this hour. I'm Linsey Davis. Be sure to stay tuned to ABC News Live for more context and analysis of the day's top stories. Thanks so much for streaming with us. Have a great night.
When you're 61 years old, you have very few opportunities to change your life. This time, I have to be ready. This is about everybody like me. I see a future which is not